today we're talking about our new dashboard primarily, but we'll also dive into another feature that we released and a couple more features for a little bit of a sneak peek. But the majority of what we'll talk about today will be the new homepage. And just to kind of give you a bit of feedback about what got us to where we're at now, we were getting a lot of feedback about the old dashboard and how it was used, and probably more so how it wasn't used and what was needed. So we spent several months just really diving into not just what people were looking for on the dashboard, but how they used Pipeline. What did they need to do first? What did they do first when they got to Pipeline, to really see what was most useful? And what we found was a lot of what was on the page was already ignored and not useful to people. So that's what led us to looking at what people needed to redesign the dashboard to reflect that. So that's what got us here, and that's what we'll primarily focus on today. So let's hop over to Pipeline to dive right in. So like I mentioned, reached out to several of you over the past several months to look and see what you needed in Pipeline. So the first area I want to cover here is not related to necessarily what drives you to identify where you need to go, but an announcement area that lots of admins were requesting to be able to post an announcement that they want everyone in the account to see. And that will appear right here at the top. So if your master admin creates an announcement, it'll appear right here. Once the reader sees it, they can actually hide it. Okay, so it's out of the way, out of sight. And then if the admin changes that announcement or adds a new one, it'll automatically re-expand, right? Until the person hides it again if they'd like to, okay? So it automatically happens that way. You can use Markdown in your messages. So if you wanted to add links, you could. It's got the cute little bell over here, which draws the eye to it when the page loads here, right? Little ring. But again, just announces any general announcement that you want to make to your team. Alrighty, so that's the first item. Let me go ahead and hide that. The second item, and I'm just going to kind of group these into main categories. What we saw overwhelmingly from users was that when they come to this page, they are almost always searching, typically up in this search area up here, looking for a particular transaction. So there are three primary areas that help achieve that a lot more efficiently and faster than when you used to go up here and search. So and they are these three elements: the search active transactions, the 7 transactions closing in 7 days, actually four areas. My shortcuts over here on the left, and there's also a most recently viewed section that appears for you over here on the left. It doesn't appear for me because I'm logged in kind of specially here. Alrighty, so let's take those one at a time. First, search active transactions. If I were to search a transaction name, let's say 123, right? It'll automatically do type ahead for me and show me those transactions, okay? So previously when I type, I'd need to type it and go ahead and search, and it would show me the entire list, and I could see my matching transactions and click from there. But here, right from the search bar, it'll show me my matching transactions. Let me make a slightly longer list there, right? And I can see it and get right to it. Alrighty. So that's the first efficiency added to help you get to that transaction faster. The second area here is we heard that across the board, the transactions that you're focusing on are those that are about to come to close, those closing in the next 7 days. So this section is primarily for identifying those transactions that are the most important. So more than likely, what you're looking for is listed in this list of transactions here. So as soon as you land on your dashboard, all you need to do is click to get to that transaction that you're looking for or working on. Okay, and we'll talk about these sections and collapsing them in the future. If you don't need to see this detail down here of these transactions, you can close this, and I'm gonna actually close all of these. You can actually close this and just go directly to those transactions that are closing in 7 days by clicking that main button, and it'll show you those transactions there. Okay. Alrighty, so let's head back here. And alrighty, so that's the second way, is looking at those transactions closing in 7 days. Alrighty. Again, I'm going to show this list because for the most part, most offices will want to keep this open so that they can see those quickly and access them. There's information here that helps you identify those that are most important, like the close date, the task completion ratio, etc. Okay. And again, I can click here to go through to those transactions, or I can click down here as well. If this will appear, this is most important. If there are more than the number of transactions that can be displayed here, then I can view the full list. All right. The other quick way to get to where I need to go, the transaction, particularly the transaction, is if I've got a special shortcut that leads me there. We talked about shortcuts in a previous webinar, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about them, but it is huge. Let me open this in a separate tab here. Creating your shortcuts are huge for getting to a list of transactions that you get to regularly. Alrighty, so if I save transactions, you know, closing this week or closing today, whatever I wanted to do to get to my transactions easily, I could do that. And it's any combination of search criteria that you can do up here. You can save as and sort criteria, you can save as a custom shortcut. Alrighty. And then the last area here, like I mentioned, I can't see it because I'm logged in specially, but you'll get a section similar to this that's called recently viewed, and it appears right below my shortcuts here. So if it's one that a transaction that you've recently worked on, it'll be right here on your dashboard. You can click right through to it. So again, several different options for finding that transaction easily. Really hard to not find it easily given those different options. And it's up to you which works best, right? If you're regularly working on the same transactions, maybe you prefer to click from recently viewed. Maybe it's right here, so this is where you prefer to click from, or maybe you just like searching. Okay. Alrighty. So that was, again, the overwhelming need to get to a transaction quickly as soon as you get into pipeline. The second areas were just really getting help identifying where you need to go in pipeline. It was nice to have those figures that allow you to jump to the little circles that allow you to jump to a particular page quickly. And you can still do that from up top, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But to get some level of analysis about what's going on in your account, what really needs my greatest attention at this point, and it'll vary depending on your role, but giving you that analysis in these buttons and this one as well was key, all right? So that's, again, primarily related to the buttons down here. So right now I've got a tasks section similar to my old tasks bar, an assigned section, an unreviewed section, and I can expand these if I want to. If I want to just go straight to these 5 tasks that are due today, which is what's highlighted here, I can just click it, and it'll take me to those 5 tasks. Okay, coming back here, if I wanted to go to straight to the 21 unassigned documents that exist, I could click that. Or if I wanted to go to my 99 plus unreviewed documents, and we'll talk about that 99 in a moment, I could just click this button. So these buttons still exist. They're not in circular format. They're more in a rectangular format, but they still exist to hop to where I need to the page that I need to go to quickly, right? Now that additional analysis comes in if I want to see those particular tasks grouped or those reviewed documents grouped. So I've got some analysis that takes place here that doesn't exist elsewhere in the system that allows me to really determine what needs my, my greatest attention, right? So let's start with tasks, right? If I primarily spend much of my time on my tasks page and I need to know what's most urgent, this section will tell me right now that I've got 5 tasks that are due today. Those are the ones that are likely going to need my greatest attention. 2 of them are for this particular transaction and 3 are for this particular transaction. So that may help guide me to know which one I want to do first. Maybe, maybe this one's got 28 tasks that are due and this one's just got 1. I just want to tackle that one first. So I go click through to that transaction, see it in the context of all the rest of the transaction and the rest of the tasks, go ahead and get it checked off. And which one is it? Actually, it's those 3. Get it checked off and then be along my way. Alrighty. So let's go back here. So I get that analysis here that tells me or identifies what's most important. Same here for unassigned docs. Maybe I've come in today and I want to see all the docs that are have been added today. Or maybe I'm at the very beginning of the morning and I want to see those that were added yesterday because they could have been added since I've left, right? So I can click through, unfortunately I don't have any here. I can click through to see those docs that were assigned, were added to unassigned yesterday, okay? So a little bit of analysis there, which helps me identify newly unassigned docs. Okay. And then over here for unreviewed, similar to tasks, I've got my unreviewed docs grouped by transaction. So I can see here, maybe this one on Wilshire only has one doc that needs to be reviewed. I'll go ahead and take care of that. I'll also pay attention to the closing date to see whether it's one that's more urgent, right? If this isn't due for a whole week, but this one up top is, and these are sorted by close date order, right? These are just super old, that's why they're all up here. But I can see the one that's coming due. It may be that my priority lies in the one that's about to close soonest, even though it's got the most docs, etc. Right? So I can make that analysis right here from the home page. Okay. So again, just adding that extra layer of detail to give you so you know where you would like to go first. One thing to mention here that there's no flag here, but if there were a transaction, excuse me, if one of these transactions were due today, there'd be a little flag there. Okay, so this flag represents closing all the time. If it's red, it means closing today or later. If it's not red, then it's just it just represents the closing date here. Okay, so again, flag always represents the closing date. Okay, one note about this 99 here. If you've got more than 99 docs, it'll just say 99 plus. Typically, if you've got more than that, the count at that point is not going to be as important as really just knowing this data down here. Alrighty. Cool deal. And like I mentioned a moment ago, if you needed to get to the page directly without having these filters, in other words, I didn't want to see just the 5 tasks due today, I wanted to see all tasks, or I wanted to see all unreviewed documents instead. Actually, this would take me to all unreviewed documents. But anyway, if I just want to go straight to the page, I can still, as I could before, just click any of these pages. So if I want to go straight to tasks, I can just click tasks. If I want to go straight to unassigned, I could do that. And there are no filters in place. Okay. Cool deal. Okay. Let me show you one more feature that was released, our email received date search. So on transactions, if you wanted to find all the transactions that had an email received, let's say in the past month, I can do that. Okay, and it'll show me those transactions with email received, and I can go ahead and check those out. I can also, of course, save this as a shortcut. Maybe most recently, emails received in the past week or past day or what have you. And then again, run that straight from my shortcuts link, which also appears on my homepage. Okay, so that was released. All of these releases happened yesterday. And then I want to show you a bit of a sneak peek of some releases that are coming very, very soon. The first is, let me hop over to where they exist. So on the tasks page, you will have the ability to check off tasks directly from the tasks page. Okay. And let's see if we can get some of the first ones. Actually, that'll do. Okay. So you can be able to do that. You can also search by agent name. So if you've got agents, let's see an agent here. Right. I want to search for all transactions where Jane Doe is the agent on the transaction. It'll do that for me. Okay. So I can filter based on those. Alrighty. And another just a little sneak peek. There are other things coming also, but just to sort of give you a little tickler here is on our transactions. If we have tasks here that you have links in, the system will smart linkify those so that you can click through directly to wherever you're linking. Just a little treat there. Okay, but I want to dive into some questions that have come through to the help desk, because they may be ones that you've got as well, and they may help answer some of your questions without even having to ask. So the first is, we got one, actually not so much question as much as feedback, that they liked the simplicity of the old dashboard, right? And the information that was on here, I guess, was just a bit too much. So just wanted to show how you can mimic that simplicity. So if you hide all these lists here and really just want the buttons that get you straight to the pages, right? Similar to what the other ones would do, these will act similarly, right? So this will take me to transactions, this will take me to tasks, unassigned, and unreviewed. So if I just want to get a simple dashboard that'll get me to these pages easily, I could collapse those. The system will remember when these are collapsed. So if I refresh this page, it won't re-expand those for me. Okay, right? So they just stay collapsed until I expand those. Then if I refresh the page, it remembers those are expanded. Okay, so if you just want the simplicity of these as buttons, just collapse those and they can be used in that way. And again, remember that you can use these top links to take you to the pages directly if you don't want these filters to take place. So you've always still got these. If I just want to go to tasks, as soon as I come into pipeline, I can just click tasks. Okay, if I want to click, go straight through to unassigned, I can do that as well. Likewise, if you never ever need to see the dashboard and want to just go to tasks directly every day, you can always bookmark this, right? Bookmark it and put it up here in your browser bookmark, if that's where you always go directly. And this is just one step to getting there. So a few different options there. So that means the only difference between what you had before was that these buttons or what used to be the circles don't have the total count numbers, right? These have filtered numbers because, again, we're looking at what did you need to do, what was most important to analyze where you needed to go. And those total numbers, even though people were used to them, didn't actually give them information or help identify what they needed to do, right? So if this said, 800 unreviewed documents, it's not going to drive me to go there any more so than seeing this list of far more detailed information that tells me what's most important on that page, right? Or if I had 96 tasks, again, the most important part of that was how many tasks are due today. Or if it's how many tasks are due this week or the next couple days, in the future, you'll be able to make custom shortcuts for those as well and be able to go directly there. But again, simplest form, collapse those. You can get there simply or even just use these top tabs. Okay, so on to, that's kind of a good segue into the next question, which is those counts, right? Again, the counts weren't as meaningful to people as the actual data that's here. We encourage you to kind of get familiar with those. We understand change can be hard, but if you do find that those counts of the totals for each of these, count total tasks, total unassigned, or excuse me, total unreviewed, etc., is actually this already has the total if it weren't over 99. But if you find that particularly this total for tasks is important to you, let us know. We're totally open to that feedback. Want to hear about your workflow, what that total number does for you to drive you where you need to go. But also maybe keep in mind how this other number, which is more analyzed and defined to what you need to work on first, might help you as well. Okay. Now that said, want to talk a bit about stats and optimization. We've gotten some feedback about these two little numbers that were up top that showed you how many unassigned docs or unreviewed docs were existed at any given time. And just want to give you a bit of a history about those two numbers. Again, we've had quite a bit of feedback about where are those numbers, and we feel you. But again, give you a bit of history. Those numbers existed back when we started Pipeline. We started it over 10 years ago. To give you context, that number appears in every Pipeline account for every user in the account every time that user clicks any button or any link in Pipeline. So for example, I could click around in an hour, I could easily click 200 times. And each time that number refreshes and recounts for every time I click on every page I go to, for every user in every account. So just efficiency wise, it was a legacy feature that was not efficient and likely not even useful. Perhaps someone might use that stat once while they're in Pipeline. Maybe some may use it more, but again, not something that needs to be refreshed every single page you go to. So we're looking at the need for it as well as obviously being efficient. It was one that we needed to take away from a performance standpoint. But again, its utility was so limited on an ongoing basis, again, on every page for every user, that we had to look at that as well. So we hope you can recognize the kind of overkill that was, that legacy feature was, and recognize that we need to look at a more efficient way of delivering you that information. Now, if it's something that you miss, meaning if going to the unassigned page to see what that number is, right? I can see that as soon as I go to this page. Let us know your workflow. We're completely open to hearing that. We want to look at ways that we can resolve that without, again, rewriting or recounting that number on every single click for every user. Okay. So just want to, again, give you that background. Sometimes it may seem like, oh, you've taken away this, this number or this feature that I look at unnecessarily. But again, that was a bit of a waste for a number that is not needed that much. And again, just not an efficient way of doing it overall. And these numbers, as we've grown as a company and have tons more customers, and as you've grown as a business and have tons more transactions and review docs, et cetera, that number is no longer feasible to redraw that many times, the thousands and thousands of times per day. And so we've done a lot of optimization. Hopefully you've seen those significant improvements over the past couple of weeks, and that was one of them. Okay. And then the last feedback, not a question either, I guess I should have called this feedback, that we got across the help desk was, hey, just give us a little bit of a heads up, right? When you're gonna make a change like this. And we'll take that hit, our bad. Our process is typically to wait, particularly when we've got a significant release, wait until later in the day when we release it. Just in case, to err on the side of caution, make sure there's not some issue that we need to roll back the feature. So we wait that little obligatory time and then give the announcement. But again, we hear you. We're like you. We hate it when a software company releases something particularly that impacts our workflow, and we're sort of caught off guard and need to kind of muddle our way through. So our apologies. We'll make sure that doesn't happen again. Just to kind of give you a background of our logic there, but we certainly sympathize and feel you. So we'll take precautions about that in the future. And we had the help article up, but and we've now linked to it from what's new. You can get to it here, new features, and the updates, and it'll show the releases, and then there's more detail on the homepage here if you want to kind of dive in and see more detail about each section. Alrighty, cool deal. I think that's it for today.